All right, it is high noon and we welcome you to our third webinar as part of our Business Resiliency Task Force, the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce, the City of Grand Prairie, and the County of Grand Prairie working together on a Business Resiliency Task Force, trying to keep local economy and local businesses informed and trying to support them best we can and trying to promote them as still working through this crisis that we're going through. Probably no other way to sugarcoat it. It's a tough time for a lot of people, and together with the city and the county and our other municipal partners, the MD of Greenview and the local communities. We're working hard, we're trying to find ways to bring you information, trying to find answers to your questions, trying to listen to your concerns, and we hope that we're able to provide some sort of support for you through this. Just a couple of other things that we're working on. We have the Love Local GP hashtag campaign on Facebook, gaining a lot of traction there. People tagging local businesses, supporting them, whether it's actually getting goods and services from them or just promoting them and saying how much they like them. We're giving away some chamber checks, which in turn support some of the 1,300 members that we have with the chamber. And at this time, I mean, it's not about just chamber members, it's about all businesses, and we encourage everyone to keep supporting local as much as possible. We just launched the Business Advisory Voucher Program, again, working with the city and the county and with Community Futures to give businesses a little boost, offer them some services that they can access to help with their businesses and with their operations, and we hope to be able to help a lot of businesses with that way as well. The Alberta Chambers of Commerce, another one of our partners, is coming out with a new survey this afternoon, and we encourage business people to fill that out to give us all across Alberta and in this area a better idea of what people are going through and the type of answers and information that they need and the support and the programs that would help right now. And then we will be doing another webinar next Friday, April 17th, and it'll be Jennifer Casely with Casely Consulting providing some information for us. And we're trying to do these weekly. We've been trying to do them on Fridays, but of course tomorrow being Good Friday, so we appreciate you all being here today. Okay, this is being recorded. We ask you to keep your microphones on mute. And then when we do get into the question and answer period after Carsey's presentation, just refer to the chat window and let us know that you have a question, or even post it there and we'll share it with the group. With that, I'd like to introduce our guest for this week. Carsey Wallen is from MNP, and she's also new to our Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. And I don't think when she signed on for that she knew that had any idea that this would be part of her contributions to the chamber and to the area, but we really appreciate her and MNP making her available for this presentation. So I'll let Carsey take it away, and then we'll be back afterwards and take your questions.
Thank you very much, Tom. So hopefully everybody can see my slide deck. I'm new to navigating all of these different meeting formats too. So if there is any issues at any time, please just raise your hand or use your question mark in the chat box, and Tom will direct your question. So today we're going to be talking about a little bit on cash flow and some of the federal and provincial relief programs that are out there. So really want to thank the County of Grand Prairie, the city, and the Chamber for hosting these webinars. There is a lot of information out there. There's a lot of information to sort through. I kind of pared down a little bit of it today to fit into an hour session, but I definitely encourage you to use the resources that are available to you on the Chamber website, the Government of Canada website, and the provincial government websites. And thank you to all of you guys for taking the time out of your day to attend today. So our agenda for today, I know we're in now week 3 of this, but we're going to go through some ideas for cash flow management, some ideas for cost management, some things that you may already considered as a business owner, some of the federal wage subsidy programs. There was even recently, within the last few hours, some new announcements on one of the wage subsidy programs. So I did my best to update this presentation, and we'll go through some of the details there. And then we'll also go through employee support programs and some of the other kind of bits and pieces that are out there. So disclaimer, like I mentioned, things are really changing rapidly, and they're changing quite frequently. So even within the last 3 weeks, as far as the government relief programs and their announcements go, there's been several. So your business advisors, I assure you, are doing their best to keep up on all of these programs. But today we'll go through a few of the details, and if you have any other questions, definitely seek some advice from your individual advisor, whether it be your accountant, your banker, or your lawyer, or feel free to reach out to one of us. So disclaimer again, material based on what we've got available to date. And then also this presentation is copyrighted by MNP, so please don't screenshot it, steal it, teach your friends. So rolling into cash flow and cost management. So right now, the goal is to predict and prepare for upcoming cash shortages. I think that's pretty well a certainty now. Almost all of the small businesses and even medium and large businesses are going to be facing some cash needs issues. So the demand for your product or your service, whatever your business may be, is going to shift, and we need to shift that cash flow and cost management thought process to help manage with those needs. So what's important right now is keeping your business alive and keeping it operational. So under cash flow, one of a good tip to kind of employ here is to develop a forecast. So some businesses may already have a budget for the year. Now definitely will be a good time to revise that budget or revise that forecast. If you haven't already created one or don't have one, now is a good time, definitely, if you haven't already started, to create a list of all of your incoming cash receipts, anything that's going to be outgoing, so stuff you're going to be spending cash on. Identifying the timing of when all of that's happening so you can plan for some other strategies. And also consider best case, worst case, and most likely scenarios. I know lots of businesses are even creating one forecast for a most likely scenario and then revising it for, say, another potential decline in revenue, or best case, things get back up and running in 4 weeks, or what have you. So definitely a good cash flow tip is prepare this and review it. Some items that you may want to consider in that forecast. So for incoming cash, definitely if your business is a cash sales business, you're going to want to identify those cash sales. Again, worst case scenario, best case scenario, and the timing of that. Collection of your accounts receivable. So incoming receivables is going to increase your cash. Whether you as an owner or maybe potential investor has to inject cash into your business and when that should happen. Any new loans that you're going to be taking on or draws on your lines of credit using your bank financing available to you to generate some cash. Any refunds or rebates that may be coming, even considering things like GST refunds. And then any other federal business support programs that you may apply for in the coming weeks. Outgoing cash, wages, rent, and definitely immediate expense payments are going to be big, right? So they're going to be things that you have to spend cash on to keep your business alive. Payments on accounts payable. So we'll talk a little bit about extending payables in a few slides here, but timing on when you can pay your payables and exactly how much you're going to pay. Things like taxes, GST, or source deductions, those are all still going to be payable. We do have some payment deferrals available, but those are all going to be items that will need to be paid for. Loan payments. So if you've got loans on equipment or buildings or other such loans, considering those loan payments and whether or not those can be deferred with your financial institution. Necessary asset purchases, and then whether or not you as a business owner may be taking any withdrawals. So once we make that list and we create this forecast, we also want to monitor and review it. So I definitely suggest reviewing your bank transactions daily. So your business bank account, your personal bank account if you're a sole proprietor, preparing your bank reconciliations weekly. So making sure that you're reconciling what's in your bank account to what's in your accounting records weekly to make sure that you are on top of that. That'll also help you identify any maybe old outstanding checks that haven't been cashed to follow up on, or some outstanding deposits that need to go through the bank. Update your cash flow forecast for changes and updates. So this economic situation that we're in related to COVID-19 and some other factors in this region is definitely changing very frequently. So consider revising that forecast for things that happen in your business every week. As we're monitoring, we also want to maximize our available cash. So some items to consider to maximize what's available to you for cash are requesting extensions on lines of credit. So again, through your banker, potentially having that conversation on extending what's available to you on an existing line of credit. Consider also drawing on your lines of credit if you haven't historically used it. Use that for operating cash if you need to. Request payment deferrals on your lines of credits and loans. Many of the banks now are taking appointments and taking requests on payment deferrals on lines of credits and loans. So definitely reach out to your banker or your relationship manager at your bank to see whether or not that is a viable option for you and your business. Request interest-only payments on lines of credits or loans. So if you still want to continue making payments and have the cash flow available to do so, consider requesting switching your payment option to an interest-only and still making those payments and paying down some of that debt as you're able to. Consider extending your payables to help maximize your cash. So the longer that you don't pay your bills, I don't want to say don't ever pay your bills, but if you extend out another 2 weeks or another 60 days, if you have the ability to, that will help you maintain cash for that time period for other operating expenses. So keep in touch with your contacts at your suppliers and your vendors, and see if there's some wiggle room there on paying within a certain time frame. One caveat there is to be prepared to be on the receiving end of this conversation. So if you are a supplier or a vendor to certain customers, be prepared that you are going to have the same question asked to you. Accelerate your receivables. So your receivables are sales that you've made and cash that you have not collected. So to help accelerate and turn over that cash, bring it into your bank account, bring it into your business, consider sending your invoices more quickly and electronically. Now with most of us working from home, or many of us working from home, electronically by email ensures that this invoice is sent quickly and it's received instantaneously. Set reminders to follow up on your past due accounts. So consider reviewing your accounts receivable listing again on a weekly basis and following up on those items that haven't been collected in 60 or 90 or 120 days. Make it as easy as possible for clients to pay. So provide options for them. Provide online payments if that's available to you. Provide e-transfers, and just make it easy for them to send the cash your way. Prioritize your payments. So there may be some of those payments in your receipt or in your payables listing, sorry, that you might be able to defer a little bit longer than others. Things that you want to prioritize right now, wages. So we want to keep staff happy, we want to keep them employed, pay your wages, pay your key suppliers and your vendors, those items that are essential to keep your business operating, your insurance and your rent. Canada Revenue Agency, while they have again announced payment deferrals, we'll discuss that a little bit later, those are vendors or payees that you want to keep happy. So those are, the CRA is definitely somebody you don't want to fall behind on. So definitely try to prioritize those payments as much as possible. And definitely you want to prioritize your loan payments, especially for those pieces of equipment or those loans that are essential to your business, and any that you have potentially personally guaranteed. So if you are a business owner and you have signed that you will guarantee a loan should your company default, you definitely want to make sure that those payments are kept up to date. With cost management, again, we're 3 weeks into this, so many of you have probably employed this tactic already, but we want to freeze any non-essential spending immediately. So halt any of those discretionary items that you maybe had a little bit of a budget for in any regular operating year, and significantly reduce anything that is really non-essential to keep the doors open, keep the lights on, keep the wheels rolling. Like we talked about in the last slide, we want to prioritize those expenses that keep you operational and generate the revenue that you're able to during this time. And consider if you had planned some significant asset purchases, if they're not essential to your day-to-day operations at this point in time, consider delaying those and saving that cash till a more fruitful time. Specifically related to the staff, there are some hard decisions that are going to have to be made, or for many of you have already been made, including temporary layoffs or potential termination. So one piece of advice here, and I know many of you probably have as business owners, contact your lawyer and make sure that any of the notices and legal documentation around a temporary layoff or termination are properly executed. So you want to make sure that you are being honest and upfront with your staff, but also protecting your business and doing the right things in order for your business to stay alive, including providing notice on temporary layoffs or termination. So that's the segue into, now we're going to talk about our wage subsidy programs. So within the last few weeks, the Government of Canada has announced a couple different wage subsidy programs, one of which they've changed a little bit over the last few hours for sure. So that's the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. So if you've been following the news, following these announcements, this is the one that we call the 75% one. So it's not passed through legislation yet. It's been announced and proposed. So there isn't actually an application available for this yet. We are expecting that hopefully within the next 3 weeks. But again, it has to pass through the House, it has to be voted on, and it has to be approved. So this one is going to be available to employers and all sorts of employers. So an individual, if you are an individual or sole proprietor and you employ individuals, you will be eligible for this. Canadian corporations, partnerships, and not-for-profit organizations. So it is much more inclusive than the first wage subsidy that was announced, which we'll talk about after this one. So as part of the application process, which I was reading on a little bit this morning, or some of their ideas around the application process, employers will be required to confirm that their reduction in revenue does meet the eligibility criteria, which we will talk about on the next slide. So whether that be a yes or no checkbox or actual numbers that you have to key in on this application, we're not entirely sure yet, but you do have to at least confirm that you do meet this reduction in revenue in order to be eligible for this wage subsidy. So the program will also be in place for the next 12 weeks, or backdated to March 15th, the 12 weeks following. So for eligibility periods, in these 12 weeks, there's going to be 3 4-week periods in which that you have to show your business has had a direct reduction in revenue as a result of this COVID-19. So for the first period, which is going to be from March 15th to April 11th, this was one of the new announcements that was just announced, that the reduction in revenue has been reduced only to 15%. So in this time period, if your revenue from your business has been reduced by 15% compared to the same period last year, or they've also announced that you can use your average first 2 calendar months here, you can be eligible for this wage subsidy. So there's lots of and or ors in these new announcements. So for a good example, if your revenue was $1,000 in March of this year and it was reduced to $500 in March of last year, your revenue was $1,000. And this March has been reduced to $500. Your revenue's then been reduced by 50%. You meet that 15% eligibility criteria for the same comparable period. If they're saying that that period in the last year was not comparable, you can use an average of January and February of 2020 to show that your revenue has been reduced by 15%. In the next 2 periods, that reduction in revenue has increased to 30%. So after April 12th until June 6th, your business will have to demonstrate that its revenue has been reduced by at least 30% compared to the same month in the prior year, or again, an average of the revenue earned in January and February of this year. One of the questions that I know I've been getting a lot is whether or not clients are eligible for this if they are letting go of their staff or if they're only working part-time. And what's important here is that these wage subsidies are on eligible remuneration that's actually paid to employees. And again, the government is definitely suggesting to keep employees working, keep them paid, and doing as much as you can to keep their salaries comparative to what they were pre-crisis. So you are eligible for the wage subsidy if you are paying employees. And this is one of the changes they announced recently also. So it was recently announced, or the previous announcement was 75% of an employee's wage on the first $58,700 up to $847 per week in this 12-week period. So it's been altered slightly, and it's going to be the greater of 75% of remuneration paid up to $847 per week, and the amount of remuneration paid up to $847 per week, or 75% of their pre-crisis weekly wage, whichever is less. So there's 3 calculations that have to go into this. First, the 75% of what they're actually paid up to a maximum of $847, what they're actually paid up until $847, or 75% of what they would have earned pre-crisis on an average weekly rate. So those all have to be considered when you are determining whether or not as an employer, you are eligible for this subsidy. That pre-crisis weekly wage, the criteria on that is going to be what that employee earned on a weekly average between the start of the year and March 15th. So it doesn't consider what they would have made during 2019 or another comparative period. It's the weekly average that they were paid between January 1st and March 15th. One thing that it will exclude out of that weekly average wage is if the employee did not work for 7 consecutive days during that period, you would just include that week or that 7 days from the calculation. Remuneration is going to include a salary, a wage, or any taxable benefits that employee would receive, and anything that you as an employer would generally be required to withhold source deductions on. This wage subsidy is not going to include amounts like severance, because again, the goal here is to keep people employed and keep them paid. stock options, or things like the use of a company vehicle that would be included in somebody's income. There is going to be no overall maximum on this subsidy as an eligible employer. However, one thing that you have to keep in mind as an eligible employer, that the subsidy received is going to be taxable to you. So any subsidy received is considered government assistance, which is a taxable item in the time you receive it. So again, the expectation is that employers are making the best effort to keep people employed and keep their wages at pre-crisis levels, and use this wage subsidy to help offset some of those costs. There was a special little paragraph regarding employees that are non-arm's length with the employer. So that would be somebody like a shareholder of a corporation if they're receiving a wage, or an immediate family member. That subsidy, on the first point there, those three pieces, or that three calculation, is only subject to the maximum of $847 per week, the lesser of that, and the 75% of the weekly crisis remuneration. So again, the application is not available yet because the subsidy still has to pass through legislation. But there are actions that you can take as an employer right now. If you have not already done so, definitely sign up for the My Business account with the CRA. If you just even Google My Business account, it'll take you to a login and registration page. And you have to have things available to you, like your last tax return, some security type questions about yourself to create this account. Set up direct deposit with the government. So this will allow that subsidy to come to you in a much timelier manner. So they were saying for the CERB, which we'll talk about a little bit later, payments received within 3 to 10 days. This one they haven't announced yet, but definitely a direct deposit will allow those funds to come to you much quicker. Keep your monthly financial statements up to date. So whether you're doing the bookkeeping yourself or you're having somebody else do the bookkeeping, make sure they're as up to date as possible, because you are going to have to demonstrate that that reduction in revenue that we talked about earlier is applicable to you, and that you are eligible for this wage subsidy on application. Make sure your payroll calculations are up to date and your payroll is entered in your financials and your records as up to date as possible. So go through those calculations, the 75% of the employee's wage up to a maximum of $847 per week. The 75% of their, let's go back here, there, of their pre-crisis wage, if they have seen a reduction in wage. And if you are needing that weekly average, that you've got that and you've got that calculated and ready. And then also kind of take a look through this one and see whether it is applicable to your business, or whether maybe some of the other options that we're going to discuss are more appropriate. So that's the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. There is lots to go through, and there have been lots of changes to this one since it's been announced. So feel free to contact your business advisor to walk through any situations that would be specific to you and your business. So their last little piece of it, there was a proposal to expand this, but again, it's just at the proposal stage, and it would consider potentially refunding a portion of the employer paid contributions of EI and CPP for those employees that are still being paid but not working. So they are employed but on leave. And that, again, just a big asterisk there, more details to come. It was only recently proposed. So back up to March 18th, this was the first temporary wage subsidy that was announced. So this one, the 10% one, called the temporary wage subsidy, the 75%, the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. So the temporary wage subsidy is equal to, or will be equal to, 10% of the remuneration paid between March 18th and June 20th, up to a maximum of $1,375 per employee. And this one does have a maximum, $25,000 max per employer. It's a completely separate program than the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, and there is a slight eligibility difference. So this temporary wage subsidy for employers is available still to individuals, partnerships, corporations, not-for-profit organizations, but specifically with corporations, it's available to those corporations that have received the small business deduction or are what's called a CCPC, a Canadian Controlled Private Corporation. So those employers that have high taxable earnings within their corporation may not be eligible for this one. So that's why the government then went and announced the CEWS to make it a little bit more inclusive. However, if you are a small business, a CCPC, you pay small business tax, you will be eligible for this temporary wage subsidy. So that being said, if you are eligible for both the temporary wage subsidy and the CEWS as an employer, just keep in mind that the government won't allow you to double dip on both. So anything that you have received under the temporary wage subsidy program will generally reduce the amounts that you are able to claim under the CEWS. So this one doesn't have a big application that you need to prepare. All you would do here is you would continue paying your employees, calculating the appropriate income tax, CPP, and EI, as you would normally. You would then calculate the subsidy on that 10% of the employee's wages up to a maximum of $1,375 per employee. And then when you go to remit and pay your payroll remittance for the period, you would reduce the tax portion of your remittance by that 10% subsidy. And similar to the CEWS, this temporary wage subsidy is also going to be taxable to the employer when received. So the difference between the subsidy you calculate and the amount that you actually pay and remit will be considered taxable to you. That's kind of a big chunk of the employer pieces. Maybe we'll stop for a few questions here if anybody's got anything, just so we don't forget them. Is there any, Tom?
I don't see any in the chat at the moment.
Okay.
If anybody has one, let me know. Otherwise, we'll let Carsey roll on here, and then again, we'll take some questions at the end if any come up. You must be doing a great job explaining this, Carsey. And oh, wait, we do have one question here. Can we get a copy of this PowerPoint emailed to us afterwards? I think we'll be sharing this a link to this webinar, and I'll let you answer the question, I guess.
Yeah, so unfortunately we aren't able to share the deck, the PowerPoint slides, but at the very end I've got some links that you can definitely write down, and like Tom said, this presentation is being recorded, so you will have access to go back and review them later.
Right on. And we did have one question just pop up as well. Can an employer use both subsidies, or is it one or the other?
An employer can use both if they're considered an eligible employer under both. So an individual employer, a corporation, a partnership, a not-for-profit. That only difference there is under this temporary wage subsidy, or the 10% one. These do have to be considered the small business, so paying the small percent business tax. And then two, anything that you claim on the temporary wage subsidy will only reduce what you claim on the 75% one, the CEWS. So they do work in tandem with each other, but you won't be able to get both of them at the same time, if that makes sense. So you'll be able to collect on the 10% one per employee up to a maximum of $1,375. But then what you collect under that 10% one will only reduce what you are able to collect on the 75% one.
It looks like a follow-up to that. Subsidies are taxable. Any idea how much tax and what rate?
So they will be taxed at your, if you're an individual employer, they'll be included in your individual taxes for the 2020 year, and you'll pay tax at your personal marginal rate, whatever that may be. It's different for everybody. And then if you are a corporate employer, so you own a company and you're employing people through your corporation, it will be included in your total net income for your business for the 2020 year when you receive it, and then you'll pay corporate tax on it. So if you're a small business in the province of Alberta, somewhere around 12-ish%. And if you are receiving the 75% one and you're paying the high rate corporate tax, somewhere in the 26 to 27% tax you'll be paying on it.
And someone else asking just for if you could repeat what CCPC means?
You bet. Canadian Controlled Private Corporation. So it is a corporation incorporated in Canada, privately owned. So it's not a publicly listed entity, and it's not a large corporation or a corporation that is paying high rate tax.
Okay, and other than a statement of remuneration paid, what forms can you use to prove payroll or prove payroll?
You would have to use whatever that you are using to calculate your payroll. So if that's your Simply accounting program, if it is QuickBooks, or if it is even your smaller employer, so you're just using a payroll calculator that's available on the CRA website, but you are going to have documentation showing that you have paid your employees.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, so we'll let you roll on.
Sure. Okay, so now we're going to look at it from the employee side. So this would be for people that have been laid off or not working because of COVID-19. So first off, regular employment insurance is still available. So if somebody is not working, has been terminated from their job to no fault of their own, actively seeking work, regular existing EI benefits continue to still be available. So it is going to be a variable amount by individual and by province. For most individuals, it's about 55% of their average weekly insurable earnings. And with regular EI, you are required to report regularly to show that you are still unemployed but actively seeking employment. And it's about $573 per week is about the maximum if you have lost your income and you are on regular EI. So this can be applied for online and through the My Service Canada account online portal. The CERB, or the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, is an extension of EI. So this is, if you've been again following the news, this is that $2,000 payment for a 4-week period. So it extends benefits to those people that regular EI may not be applicable for. So that includes people that are self-employed and haven't been working or are sick because of COVID-19. It includes people who are sick because of COVID-19 or maybe taking care of somebody. And then it definitely includes parents that have to stay home without pay because their kids aren't in school or they don't have any other daycare or childcare availability. So it just provides an extension on the people that would be eligible to receive this benefit. So it is a one-time payment of $2,000 for a 4-week period. So you apply in 4-week chunks. The first one was for the March 15th to April 11th period. And the applications of this opened this week. So the CRA is suggesting, and Service Canada is suggesting, that you apply by day for the month of the year that you were born in. So as of today, people born in the months of October, November, and December can log into their My Canada account and apply for it. So if you don't have a My Canada account or My Account with CRA, definitely even just Google My Canada account or My Account, and you can follow the steps to register for that. What the My Account is your own personal tax account. So it'll include things like your prior year tax returns, RSP deduction limits, and now this application for the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So when you log on, it actually pulls up a banner right at the very top that says, if this is your day, please, and you're eligible, please apply for the CERB. And it is quite a simple application process. It asks you the period you're applying for, and then asks you to confirm that you are eligible for this application. You click yes, you confirm that everything is complete and accurate, and you press submit. So it is going to be pretty user-friendly if you've got that My Canada or My Account. And two, if you miss your day of the week, Monday through Thursday, depending on your birthday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is open to all people to apply. So eligibility. So on your first application, so the first of the 4-week sections that you are applying for, you must be a resident of Canada. You must be at least 15 years or older when applying. So you have been working. You've stopped work or will stop work due to COVID-19. And for at least 14 consecutive days in the period you're applying for. So that is within that 4-week chunk. If you have not worked for 14 consecutive days or will not work for 14 consecutive days, you would be eligible. And that does include employment income, so from a regular job, self-employment income, so if you're a self-employed individual and you're not receiving income in 14 consecutive days, and you haven't received any federal or provincial maternity or paternity leave benefits. So if you are receiving maternity leave benefits or paternity leave benefits right now, unfortunately you won't be eligible for this Canada Emergency Response Benefit. So after this first application, so every 4 weeks, you would, if you are eligible for the CERB for this $2,000 payment every 4 weeks, at the end of your 4-week cycle, if you are still not working or will not be working, you can apply again. So it's going to be a new application every 4 weeks to continue receiving that $2,000 payment for that 4-week period. So after your first application, for a subsequent application, so your second, third, or fourth, the first 3 criteria are still the same. You live in Canada, you're 15 years or older when you've applied, you continue not to work. Same income criteria, so in the 4-week period that you are applying for, you have not or will not receive income from employment, self-employment, or maternity, paternity benefits. You have not quit your job voluntarily, so unfortunately, if you just decide to walk up and leave one day because of COVID-19, you're not eligible for these subsequent periods. And you haven't already applied for CERB or regular EI benefits in that same period. So you're unable to collect regular EI benefits for the same period in which you would apply for CERB. And previous to receiving CERB in the subsequent application, you've earned at least $5,000 of income in the last 12 months or within the first 2.5 months here of 2020. So, and again, from our knowledge, that is just going to be a review the application, confirm you meet the criteria, and submit. Any questions on CERB before we go into some random little programs?
There is one question here. What about oil service businesses that close or are closed due to the drop in oil prices?
So yeah, that's one of the things that I know our firm has had a little bit of frustration on, and we've submitted comments on, is how do we show that people are eligible specifically for COVID-19 or other factors, or a combination of COVID-19 and other factors. But so for us, these programs are specifically worded around COVID-19. So the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, if you've been laid off or let go for other reasons, we suggest taking the regular EI route, because one of the items that you have to confirm that you are eligible for the CERB for is specifically a result of COVID-19.
I have a question. Is there a program available for people that have pre-existing conditions such as asthma that put them in greater risk to be working at this time? So they weren't working, but to be able to work, it would put them potentially in harm's way because of pre-existing conditions.
Right. So I would go back to kind of this criteria here, where if you are, if you don't qualify for the existing EI benefits, or if you are self-isolating and not working because of a pre-existing condition, and you're at greater risk because of COVID-19, that would be specific, like specific non-employment, or you're not working because of COVID-19. So they haven't specifically identified whether certain pre-existing conditions would or would not make you eligible for this. But if you were not working because of COVID-19, whether or not it's a pre-existing condition, or you've been laid off, or you're sick, or you're caring for someone that was sick, then our interpretation is that this would be eligible for you.
Thank you. Okay. You said you have some a few other bits and pieces to share.
Yeah. So we've got, I'm sorry for taking a bunch of the time here, but we've only got about 10 slides left. So we're going to roll through these next little ones pretty quickly. So there are a few other federal programs available and some provincial ones. So I haven't highlighted all of them here, but I've highlighted some that I think are going to be applicable to a lot of the people in our region. So some other federal programs, the Canada Child Benefit. So there's been an additional amount announced for people that do claim the Canada Child Benefit, and they have said that it will be provided on the May payment. As a reminder, your child benefits are determined based on your tax filings every year. So if you are still eligible for the child benefit, just make sure that you're getting your personal taxes in and done in a timely manner to make sure that those calculations are updated and you continue receiving your CCB payments. For those individuals that are eligible for the goods and services tax credit, this is generally very low income households or low income individuals. The goods and services tax credit has been increased to a one-time payment of $400 per an individual, or $600 for a couple. And again, these aren't applications that you have to do. They're based on your tax filings. So ensure that your tax returns are up to date and filed. In the province of Alberta, so I'm identifying a few Alberta specific ones. I know lots of our clients here and lots of you potentially on the line maybe deal within certain other provinces, but we'll just touch on Alberta here. So Alberta did announce that they will support a utility payment deferral. So consider contacting your utility provider directly, and they have, excuse me, supported a 90-day payment deferral on residential, farm, and small commercial customers. So, and this will be available for Albertans experiencing financial hardship, specifically for COVID-19. WCB payments. So the government has supported Alberta WCB premium payment deferrals up to 2021. So for small and medium employers, Alberta government will cover 50% of your premium cost, and for large employers, they aren't covering the cost, but your payments can be delayed till 2021. And you should be receiving either via email or in the mail your WCB reporting. It will include information on how to access these programs also. If you were in the webinar last week, ATB had some really good information on their specific programs related to loan deferrals and mortgage deferrals. So definitely suggest contacting your financial institution and your relationship manager to see if any of their programs will be available to you. Mortgage payment deferrals, definitely within the big 6 banks, ATB and some credit unions have been announced, and potentially some payment on deferrals of business loans or lines of credit. So get in touch with your banker and see what they can do for you. One of the federal credit accounts or credit announcements that came out was this Canada Emergency Business Account. So this is an interest-free loan that is provided through your bank. So we've been told that they are going to be available starting here in April. Contact your financial institution directly. But what this is it's up to a $40,000 loan on eligible small businesses to help cover some of those operating costs. And what will happen with that is repayment is going to be due December of 2022. And if you're unable to make $10,000 of that amount, if you're unable to pay $10,000 of that amount back, you may be eligible for loan forgiveness. So if you're able to pay $30,000 back, you may be eligible for loan forgiveness on that last 10 grand. So get in contact with your bank if this is something that is piquing your interest and potentially something that your business could be eligible for. And then the Business Development Bank of Canada is also providing some credit programs. So if you're already an existing BDC customer, definitely suggest reaching out to your business advisor, but also in connection with some of the financial institutions, the BDC and the Export Development Canada are providing some co-lending and some loan program guarantees that you could potentially take advantage of. And last little section here is just some deadlines. So some updated deadlines on what is going to be coming down the pipe for CRA filings. So for personal taxes, our filing deadline every year is April 30th, 2020. For your 2019 personal taxes, this filing deadline's been extended to June 1st. So you've got an extra 4 weeks to get your stuff together, give it to your accountant, and get it filed. If you're doing your own personal taxes, just be aware that your deadline is going to be June 1st. For self-employed individuals, their deadline is June 15th, and that remains unchanged. If you do have a payment required for personal taxes, so if you, once filing your personal taxes or your accountant filing your personal taxes, you are required to pay the CRA, that payment is also due on August 31st. So originally, or in any other year, these would be due April 30th, but you have been granted an extension to August 31st. One of the asterisks is that the government has in announcing these filing deadlines is please try to the best of your ability to have your taxes filed and payments made to April 30th if you have the ability to. The money for some of these programs is going to be coming from somewhere. So if you are taxable and you are required to pay, they definitely suggest doing that sooner rather than later. But you do have the ability to extend that payment to August 31st without interest or penalty. For corporate income taxes, so corporate taxes, generally speaking, again, there's some differences for some companies, but your payments are due within 3 months of year end, and filings are due within 6 months of year end. So for companies that have their year ends in September, October, and November of 2019, the CRA has announced that that filing extension is to June 1st. So we've got until June 1st to make those filings. GST for business owners or individuals that would be GST applicable. So any payments owing on or after March 27th can be deferred until June 30th without interest. So this is another one where they're a little bit flaky. They say, please file your remittances and make your payments on time. However, if you don't, you can defer your payment without interest, or if you don't file, we're not going to impose the penalty until June 30th. So we definitely suggest, just to even keep your books and records up to date and everything up to date for even some of these other programs, keep your GST up to date and continue with your regular filings and your regular remittances. For the most part, audit and review activity has been pretty well halted. So if your business has been subject to a CRA review in the last few weeks or even the last couple months, get in touch with that CRA agent or the reviewer that's listed on your letter. Their phone numbers should be listed there also, and their supervisor's phone numbers. And just make sure that they have ceased any further action on your audit or your review if that's happening. So again, there's really no date on when that will get fired back up again, but just be aware that if you are currently the subject of an audit, you may have a little bit of a grace period here to get more things organized or get a response prepared. And for Alberta taxes, so any payments or installments that were due between March 18 and August 31st, they've all been extended to August 31st. So if you were required to make monthly installments, those can be delayed, or quarterly installments, those can be delayed till August 31st without interest. And then for corporate tax returns, similarly to the provincial tax returns for, or sorry, the federal tax returns for corporations, your filing extension has been extended to June 1st. So here is some links or some websites that may be useful to you. Our Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce has a nice page right at the very beginning under this COVID business resiliency that has a lot of links to our provincial and federal programs and our websites. So definitely take advantage of that. The two I've listed here, the Alberta is specifically for the Alberta programs related to COVID-19, and the Canada one that I've listed here includes their whole economic response plan. So it includes some of the things we talked about today, but it's also got links or references to the specific programs for you that you can follow along to. And of course, our MNP team has created a nice little business advice center. So feel free to visit our website and get some more guidance and some more direction on potential programs or some tips that may be helpful to you and your business. And that's all I have for presentation. So open the floor to questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Carsey. There are a few in the queue here. One of the application questions asks for an ROE. Do you know if this requirement is cast in stone? This is about those that have not been laid off, but there is no work.
So an ROE is issued to you if your job has been terminated. So that would be applicable for regular EI benefits. You would have to show that you are not working. So for the CERB, or the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, an ROE is not required.
Okay. A summer student subsidy was announced, but in looking into this, the application process was closed long ago. Will they reopen this for new applications? We were part of the STEP program provincially, but it was discontinued in Alberta. We hire students all the time and would like to continue with this if a subsidy is available.
Right. So definitely they did say that summer student programs would be announced. We don't have a whole bunch of details on that right now, unfortunately. However, the Canada emergency wage subsidy, they did announce that that would also be applicable for new employees. So if you hire a summer student beginning in one of the periods before June, then that individual's wage will also be considered for that 75% subsidy. But specific summer student programs, unfortunately, I don't have the details for right now.
Next question, what about T4 payroll versus dividends? I'm not sure what the context is for that.
The idea is regarding the $40,000 loan. Just a question, when they talk about payroll being 50,000 to 1 million, does that include the T4 payroll as well as the pardon me, the dividends that owners take?
No, as far as my understanding goes, it's just payroll compensation, not owner distributions in the form of dividends.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Are sole proprietors allowed to claim CERB, the $2,000, if their business is not 100% closed?
Yes, so sole proprietors are able to claim the CERB, but the piece there that's going to make you eligible is if you haven't received employment, including self-employment income, during the period for which you are applying for. So in 14 consecutive days in the 4-week period you are applying for, you must not receive self-employment income in order to be eligible.
If we close for a while without laying off and still pay staff, do we still have to file ROE? From what I have read, the answer is no, since they are still being paid and have not gone 7 days without pay. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So if you're still, even though you are not operating, but you're still paying employees, you are not required to file ROEs.
I heard that some dividends would be eligible, or is there no type? I think that's referring back to Barry's question, yeah.
Can you repeat, sorry, Tom? You broke up a little bit.
I heard that some dividends would be eligible, or no type.
So my understanding was it was payroll, and because dividends are excluded from a payroll definition, but I can look into that and get a response back for sure.
Okay. Just wait a little bit if there are any more questions.
Mm-hmm.
I think back to how much I enjoyed my accounting classes in high school, but now I'm really sort of thankful I never pursued that, because boy, is there a lot of information.
Well,
wow.
And I will be very frank too. It's been a lot to catch up on, and because it's been so rapidly changing, you know, many business owners, you know as much as we do. So we are definitely trying to get as much information as we can to help advise not only clients but community members too. So definitely feel free to reach out to your business advisors as much as you can.
Okay, I know you said no to a copy of the PowerPoint, but some kind of hard copy of this information would be beneficial. Not links, but just a list of information. Yeah, I guess if you want to contact Carsey and the folks at MNP, I'm sure they can provide some more links to you, and you know, without the actual presentation. But
yeah.
And again, we will be we have been recording. We will share the link again, so we'll give you the opportunity to stop on certain slides and you know, jot down some information. And again, this is changing daily, folks, and it's tough. It's tough to keep up with. It's not only tough for you, the business people, but it's tough for the accountants and the professionals. I see Nicole has a couple of questions. So if Nicole, I mean, you can, we'll just let you unmute yourself and ask Carsey directly if you'd like.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I'm getting used to the dashboard. Okay, so I do have a question in terms of, so can an employee refuse to come back to work because they're making more from CERB than if they were working? And if no, is there a way that employers can actually have, I don't want to say force them to come back, but make them come back?
So if they are refusing to come back to work, then that would be they've left the job voluntarily or on their own account, not as a result of being financially distressed because of COVID-19. So
okay, so if they were laid off due to the employer,
yes,
then they technically do not have to come back to work then until CERB runs out, CERB benefits run out.
right, or
Okay.
their temporary layoff is over, right?
Okay, right. So if you didn't specify a temporary layoff date though, then.
Yeah, so generally temporary layoff days in the province of Alberta is up to 60 days. You can confirm that with your lawyer just to make sure I'm not just spewing random things, but I'm pretty sure under the province of Alberta it's 60 days with the option to extend.
Okay.
And then if it is even in your own written agreement that your temporary layoff is X number of days,
Okay.
then it's got to be an agreement between the employee and the employer on whether or not they're coming back to work. And if they say, no, I'm not coming back to work, then that's going to be, you're going to have that serious conversation. Okay, well, are you doing this because you're quitting? Or are you doing this to kind of, I don't want to use the word scam, but unethically take advantage of the programs that are available?
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
All right. I guess a follow-up, what if they feel unsafe?
So if they feel unsafe, I think that's just going to have to be a conversation between you and your employee. So if they feel unsafe because of COVID-19 and they're just straight up not safe working versus refusing to work to collect benefits, I think that's a different conversation. And then they're laid off because of COVID-19 or not working because of COVID-19, not choosing to take advantage of benefits just because they can.
A couple of attendees mentioning that the Alberta government announced an extension to the layoff up to 120 days.
Good.
So thank you for that, for those that shared that with us. Any other questions? There have been a lot of thank yous here in the queue for your presentation, Carsey, and I think we all thank you and the other professionals that are trying to stay on top of everything and doing such a great job in helping your clients and customers and just people in general that are looking for answers in a very confusing time. So we really want to thank Carsey and again MNP for making this information available to us. And it was something that is really appreciated by everyone. So thanks, Carsey, for being
thanks
here
for everybody for attending and taking again the time out of your day.
So again, we have been recording. We will share the link at some point so you can go back and see some of the options that are available to you. We will be hosting again another webinar next Friday. Again, it'll be Jennifer Casely from Casely Consulting trying to provide a few answers to you as well. And we will keep doing these webinars weekly, providing different viewpoints and different information to you as we proceed through this. Just a reminder that we do have a lot of information on our chamber website through the Business Resiliency Task Force. Again, thank you to the city and county for being part of that with us at the chamber. Thank you to Community Futures for being part of our business advisory voucher program, which just got launched yesterday. We've had a couple of applications already. Looking forward to more applications, and they do great work over at CEF, and we thank them very much for all their contributions to this. And the Alberta Chambers survey that's coming out today, we'll be sharing that. Let them know what's happening in your business, and so they can get a better understanding of what's happening in our region. And don't forget to love local GP on Facebook, and not only on Facebook, but just in general. Let's love local GP, and let's keep this thing rolling. So thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Carsey, and we look forward to seeing you all again.